Welcome back to the TowerCast Podcast, the towering podcast for the towering filmmaker of El Paso and the world. And we are live at the Las Cruces International Film Festival. It's an exciting weekend every year. This is the 7th annual festival. And before I introduce our awesome guest today, I got to introduce my fellow co-host, Mr. John Eric Castro.
How you guys doing? I'm here giving the acting perspective questions.
Mr. Michael Lalo.
Hello again, offering the cinematography perspective.
And I'm your fellow humble co-host, Carlos de la Torre, giving you a writing directing perspective. Let's give a little shout out to Austin Young and Ricky Rodriguez, making sure we're sounding and looking great here for you all. This festival is very special, always has a great turnout of filmmakers, always has a great turnout of celebrity guests as well that we can learn from. And this year's no different. Today we're talking to the director of the festival. We need a little drum roll here. Mr. Ross Marks, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here, and I appreciate you guys giving us the support.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us here. I mean, absolutely, we got this great space, and Ross was like, no, you guys are going to do this. And
this is awesome.
By the way, thanks for taking a minute. We've seen you just like darting across the place the whole time.
Yeah, it's a lot, screening 100 films, trying to host all these celebrities.
Awesome. And it's hosting a film festival, you're sitting down watching films, but you're running the whole time. Oh my God.
No, I'm going to leave here and watch a little bit of The Lion King. It'll be the first film I've had a chance to watch in 3 days. So.
And Ross, and just to mention, to this year's festival, we have Rob Minkoff, Melissa Barrera, great William H. Macy, on top of a ton of other people, some of which you'll listen to us talk about on the podcast. But Ross, before we even get into the festival, you're a storyteller.
Yes.
Ultimately, that's your core. Ross here has directed a number of great projects, one of his most recent ones being with George Lopez, Edward James Olmos, which was terrific. Ooh. He's a professor at NMSU teaching film. So you have a ton of knowledge to impart. So what made you want to become a storyteller to begin with?
I started out as an actor in the theater. I wanted to be an actor. And I was a student at UCLA, and I started dating a young woman who's now my wife. Her father is Mark Medoff, who's passed away sadly a couple of years ago. And I met Mark. He watched me in a play at UCLA, and he said, you know what, you need a lot of work. You better transfer to New Mexico State University to work with me for a couple of years.
Oh, wow. That direct?
And he was that direct. I said, what do you think? Are you going to put me in your next? Mark had just been nominated for an Academy Award for Children Lesser God. So he came to see me in a play. I was all excited. I said, this is my break. Go to dinner. He says, you need a lot of work, kid. So I transferred out to NMSU, studied with Mark for 2 years. And at the end of 2 years, he said to me, you're a pretty good actor. You might be able to make a living, but I think you'd be a great film director. So he you know what? I was excited and grateful because he did something for me that I try to do for my students, which is offer insight into where their talents lie. So somebody may think they want to do something else, but they happen to have I've turned a number of my directing students into producers, my acting students into directors, into screenwriters into DPs. So, my job as a professor is to mine the talent from somebody and point them in the right direction. So I was very blessed that Mark became that first mentor to me, and then I went on. I got my master's degree from the American Film Institute, started directing films, and like you said, most recently walking with her with Edward James Olmos and George Lopez. But I fell in love with the medium of film as a storyteller because there are so many tools available to us. I'd worked in the theater, and in the theater, you're really limited as a director with what you have available. As a filmmaker, you've got the camera, you've got lights, you've got sound, you've got music, you've got VFX, you've got the actors, you've got the production. There's so many tools available to you as a storyteller to create mood and to create emotion. Absolutely. And that's what I love about telling stories on film. And it's eternal, right? So, years after I die, my movies will still be out there and people will still see my stories.
And I got to ask, I always fascinated about this, to ask the directors, what was that one movie, that one actor that sparked that?
For me, I saw a movie called Dead Poets Society.
Dead Poets.
And I was a college student, and I saw the film, and I said, you know what? The movie was about following your dreams, no matter what people tell you. And it really affected me. And I thought, you know what? That's what I want to do. I want to try and tell stories like that affect people in a positive way. And I got great advice from Mark Medoff, my mentor, early on. He said, when you tell a story, if you can affect one person positively, just one, then you've succeeded.
Yeah.
So I've always listened to that. No matter the
Yes.
box office of my films, no matter how it's done, if one or two people are affected in a positive way, then I've succeeded. Although when you have a lot of money invested in a film, and preferably you have a lot of people affected positively.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But-
The reach is insane. And
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I think we live by the same
We've
model.
all had a film that's hit us really hard, and then we jump
We
into
wanna do
filmmaking.
the
Yeah.
same. We want
Yeah.
to do the same.
It's incredible.
Now, how does that transition kind of work into? You obviously made Las Cruces your home.
Yes.
And the community here and the New Mexico community in terms of filmmaking is booming.
Yes,
right
it
now,
is,
booming
yeah.
in production. We're just a little down south here in El Paso, but we feel it.
Yeah.
And we see it all the time. So how does that transition kind of work from making films to the film festival? Because you're still making films. That
Oh,
part
very much
has
so.
a-
Yeah,
that part-
I got a new project. That'll be announced soon in the fall that I'll be shooting.
Awesome.
So I'm excited about
Stay
that.
tuned.
Yeah.
So how did that kind of come about with the film festival?
So for me, I had graduated from film school. I was fortunate enough to sell a couple screenplays. I sold the screenplay to 20th Century Fox. I sold the screenplay to TriStar. Neither of them got made, so I was very frustrated. And a friend of mine said, he was a producer in LA, and I said, this kind of sucks, man. I'm writing these screenplays, nothing's getting made. I really want to be. He said, go to the Sundance Film Festival. This was 1994. And I said,
Wow.
why? He said, go to the Sundance Film Festival, and when you come back, you tell me why. So I went to the Sundance
Wow.
Film Festival, and it changed my life. Because at Sundance, there were all these independent
It was the indie
filmmakers
boom.
that were passionate about making a movie.
Sure.
It didn't matter the budget. It didn't matter the name actors. They just made their movies. Robert Rodriguez was there that year with El Mariachi. Tarantino was there that year with
Reservoir
Pulp
Dogs.
Fiction, with
Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs, and a number of great filmmakers. And so I met all these people. I met a great DP. I said, hey, I want to make a movie. Can I get your name? I met a great production designer. I met a bunch of great actors and producers. So I came back from Sundance all inspired.
Absolutely.
I said, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to be an independent filmmaker. Not run around Hollywood to the studio system and hope somebody gives me a few bucks to make a movie,
Right.
but take my career into my own hands
Right.
and do things independently. So I went out, raised the money for a movie called Homage, shot it the next year, went to Sundance the next year. I won the Best Director Award at Sundance. Went back to Sundance 2 years later with another film I did. So Sundance in the 90s was this incredible
It was
celebration of
the
independent
indie
film.
boom, yeah.
Yeah.
But Sundance, Tribeca, Telluride, Toronto, they've all lost their way. Now they don't celebrate the independent filmmaker.
Right.
Now they're big studio films
Yeah.
with big stars.
Yeah.
So as a filmmaker, I wanted to create a home for the indie filmmaker. So I was here in Las Cruces. I said, you know what? If Sundance is going to stop supporting independent film, I'm going to do it.
Awesome.
And so I set up the Las Cruces International Film Festival to be a
Did
home
you-
for the
did
indie filmmaker.
Did you see the boom coming?
In the 90s?
Yeah, well, when you started the festival here.
Well, you know what? When we started, I actually started. This is my 13th year doing a film festival. I did originally it was called the White Sands
Oh, okay.
International Film
Okay.
Festival, and it's been a lot of hard work. This is our 7th year in Las Cruces, and it's just gotten bigger and better and bigger and better. And this year, our ticket sales have been through the roof.
That's wonderful.
You guys have seen
Packed
the
houses.
packed
Yeah, you can see,
houses. The people we've gotten over the years from Bill Macy to Brendan Fraser, Richard Dreyfuss, George Lopez, Edward James Olmos, Danny Trejo, Sybil Shepherd. So, like Bill Macy had heard of us.
Wow.
He had heard of the Las Cruces International Film Festival. So when I invited him, he said, absolutely. So, as the festival grows and becomes more successful, it gets
Right.
easier to attract
sure.
that
Right.
type of talent. So
Sure.
it's been a lot of hard work. I've done it. Community members have done it. Students, I teach the film festival as a class at NMSU.
Oh, wow.
We're the largest film festival in the country put on by a university.
Oh,
wow.
So I teach a class in the fall. I get 17 students, and we program the festival.
Oh,
So I
wow.
tell the
Okay.
kids, all right, your narrative shorts, your documentaries, you're this category,
Oh,
you're
it's
that
incredible.
category,
This is how we
and they
program.
actually program it. And then the kids in the spring put it on. So you see all the young students running
Wow,
around, taking
that's so
tickets,
cool.
selling, T-shirts, driving the celebrities.
Right.
It's an all student-run festival, which is what
Wow.
makes it so amazing because I'm trying to do for my students what my friend did for me by sending me to
So
Sundance.
Sundance.
And what I would like to add that's amazing is that whole vision of the independent filmmaker and coming and just making your film. Don't wait for somebody else. Everybody we've talked to, they all really carry that vision. I think that's
Yeah.
just amazing that you see it manifested here, and you see it that it's perpetuating itself. It's not just people saying, yeah, well, wait until something lands, or okay, make something, but really you're trying to make money off of this. You see people coming from all walks of creativity to just say, no, it's time to do it, and I think that energy really flows here. So, good on you for keeping that up here.
Absolutely. As independent filmmakers, we're grateful because we get to see it right in our community.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Can you talk a little bit about your latest experience in that regard, walking with Herb? What was that experience like?
Walking with Herb was great. I tell I'm helping a number of young filmmakers in addition to my students, and they always ask me, how do I get my movie made? And I said, 2 ways. Number one, you have to say, I'm going to go make it. You have to commit to making it. Not, I'm going to try and make it. I'm going to try and raise the money. I'm going to reach out. No, I'm going to make it. Set a start date. And say, I'm going to shoot it on this. Now, you don't have the money.
Right.
But I'm going to make it, and I'm going to start shooting on this date. Absolutely. And if you put things into momentum, so the Walking with Herb, it was the same thing. We had a script. I didn't have the money. I said, I'm making this movie. I had knew Edward James almost through the film festival. I had been inviting him. He never came. But I had his personal email. So I said, hey, Mr. Olmos, I'm making a movie. Here's my script. I'm shooting on this date. I can pay you $200,000. I had no money. But, and he called me and said, I love the script. I'm in. $200,000. You're going to have to come up with a little more money, but I'm in. I'll make this movie. And then I had a star. So now I had a film with a star. And then because I had Eddie Olmos, I reached out to George Lopez and said, hey, I got Edward James Olmos. He said, if Olmos is doing it, then I'll do it. Wow. So then I got Lopez. So then I had Edward James Olmos and George Lopez. Then I could run around telling people, hey, I got a movie with Edward James Olmos and George Lopez. Would you like to invest in it? And I'm shooting on this date, so I need to know very quickly. And remarkably, everything fell into place. We were able to raise the money. It ended up being a $6 million movie. Wow. We had Billy Boyd from The Lord of the Rings was in it. We had Chris McDonald, who everyone knows as Shooter McGavin and Happy Gilmore. We had Kathleen Quinlan, Academy Award nominee for Apollo 13. So we ended up having a great cast. Sold the film to Pureflix and Universal Pictures. Had a theatrical release. Now it's streaming everywhere. So ended up being a great experience. And the most importantly for me, I shot it and made it in my hometown of Las Cruces, and because that's my number one thing. I teach here. I run the film festival here. I make movies. All I'm trying to do is grow film in southern New Mexico. And that includes El Paso, because 50% of our kids at NMSU are from El Paso.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, you're doing a tremendous job at it, Ross. Can you, for our viewers and for us as well as independent filmmakers, do you have any advice?
Like I said, there's 2 approaches to, if you're a filmmaker and you're a storyteller, there's 2 approaches. Is you can, first you got to have a script. It all starts with a good script. You can't make a good movie without a good script. So you need that blueprint to make your movie, which is the script. So get your script. It doesn't cost you anything to write a great script, to rewrite it, to give it to friends, to do a table read, to get notes. Get that script in the best shape you can, and then say you're going to make it. Just, I had a former students of mine, 2 terrific filmmakers. They wanted to go make this movie. I said, what's your budget? He said, we need $1.2 million. I said, how much do you have? He said, we have $200,000. I said, go make it for $200,000. Just go make your movie. So go make your movie for $10,000, $200,000, whatever it is. For me, I started out here and here and here, and Walking with Her was my biggest film at $6 million. But I've made several films before and have kind of worked my way up to that budget level. But it all started for me again when I went to Sundance and I saw all these people there. Said, I'm just going to make a movie. Absolutely. I don't care how much money I have or don't have. I'm just going to make it. So that's my advice: is to go make it. If it's a short film, go make it. If it's a music video, go make it. Just go make it. And the more you work as a filmmaker, the more you direct, the more you shoot, the more you act, the better you're going to get at it.
Absolutely.
And you learn things. This didn't work. I won't do it again. This was great. I'll do it again.
But give yourself that deadline. Give yourself that
set
deadline.
a start date. And tell everybody. Tell your parents. Tell your neighbors. Tell your friends. Get your crew. Hey, I'm shooting on this date. Do you want to be my DP? I'm shooting on this date. You want to be a production designer? I'm shooting on this date. You want to be my grip, my gaff? Get everybody going. And for me, every movie I've made, I've said I'm making it. I've set a start date. And it's happened. So that's what I tell everybody. Just because the world is filled with people that have excuses for not doing it. I couldn't raise the money. I couldn't find an actor. I couldn't find a location. I couldn't find a crew. just go make it.
Right,
You know,
absolutely.
for $5 or $5 million, go make your movie.
That's wonderful.
Remarkable advice, Ross. Thank you so much for talking to us about this, and thank you for doing what you do in the Las Cruces community. And like I said, in El Paso as well, we feel it. We feel the love. And we want to reciprocate it as well. So you heard it here on the TowerCast podcast from the Las Cruces International Film Festival. We had Mr. Ross Marks. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
And
you,
stay
sir.
tuned, because we're going to be talking to a plethora of amazing filmmakers here at the festival who are going to impart amazing advice. So thank you so much for tuning in, and stay tuned. Welcome back to the TowerCast Podcast, the towering podcast for the towering filmmaker of El Paso and the world. We are live from the Las Cruces International Film Festival, talking to amazing individuals. Our guests right now are no exception to that. We just screened their film, and we just screened our film, I should say. We're a little biased in this conversation, but that doesn't mean they're not amazing filmmakers. Before we introduce our guests, let's introduce my fellow co-host, Mr. John Eric Castro.
How you guys doing? I'm John Eric Castro. I'm gonna ask the acting perspective questions.
Mr. Michael Alao.
Hello, I'm the one to the left.
He does the lighting. He does,
I'm the cinematography perspective.
There we go.
He does everything.
He does everything. And I'm your humble co-host, Carlos de la Torre, giving you a writing directing perspective. Let's give a shout out to Austin Young and Ricky Rodriguez, making sure we're sounding and looking good there in the background. We have the writer-director, and cinematographer of Vivid, short film here that we just premiered at Las Cruces. We have Jesse Freire, and we have Mr. Daniel Herrera. Thank you guys for joining.
Hello, how are you guys?
How's it going?
These guys are awesome guys. We work with them on a daily basis, and they're the best dudes to work with.
They're barely taking it in because we just screened Vivid, so they're barely
Yeah.
On
taking
the
it all
big
in.
Yeah, we're
On
still
the
shaking.
big screen.
Because this is the first time that we screen the
Premiere.
show, so it's like, oh,
And then
Oh, yeah.
amazing.
We've the producers. I've had the pleasure of seeing this a few times through its different iterations, but seeing it on the big screen is a completely different experience.
also, you guys were front row, just watching
literally.
your film.
that's true.
Does that do something?
Was that a little more north?
Well, it was, I saw big feet,
Immerse you a little bit more.
small
Yeah.
heads, so
No, guys, I mean, I tell you guys this all the time because we've been able to see it previously, but this film is terrific. It's not only a standout film in the lineup, as we were talking about earlier, but it's a standout film in our own slate. It's just terrific. We're very happy to make this film with you guys. And talk a little bit about the inception of it all. Jesse, I know we kind of told a story at the Q&A, but tell us a little bit about it.
well, it all started 10 years ago.
Wow.
Once upon a time in a land
upon a
far,
time.
far away.
Yeah, I had this idea of making, because I had a dream, not like that, but similar. So there was one time that I was like, okay, what can I do to maybe something short, something small, something easy, quick, so I can showcase what I can do, making something for a reel, whatever. And I was like, well, maybe some dream sequences or something that doesn't really have any, that I can have some freedom working with. So I wrote the idea, but it just stayed there because I didn't have the funds, I didn't have the team, I didn't have really the energy to do that. I just had the idea and I left it there. And then every now and then I would come back and fill the gaps. I was like, okay, now it's like a complete
More concrete
story. Yeah, and then finally, after 10 years, one of the meetings that we had, we were looking for stories to start off the after the pandemic hit.
Right.
And I immediately thought about that story. I was like, okay, this is a chance to show them. Maybe it's gonna hit. So, and well, right now it did.
It absolutely did. It absolutely did. I have to say, I championed this film a lot when I first read the script. I heard the concept, and with the execs, we were like, "This is going to be special," and it'll kick us off into post-COVID filmmaking. We did the little 48 film, and then we jumped into this, and it was very organic to kind of get back into it through Vivid.
When you guys started, was it Vivid already? That's the first thing you directors, see. Was it called Vivid, or did it have another title to it?
No, it was not called Vivid. Well, once
when we started,
once I presented the idea to Tower Productions, it was Vivid. But before I didn't have a title. I was
okay.
just
And we should note that Jesse has directed for us before with Precognition, which is also a terrific picture. And we kind of see a bit of a pattern in terms of like how you execute storytelling in a good way, and not just a pattern, but how you evolved from Precognition to something like Vivid. It's this one you wrote, so it came straight out from you. So I think that's something.
yeah, that's true. And it's funny that it's only 3 pages. The
Right.
script is only 3
Right.
pages, but it's
Wow.
like descriptions and this he runs, but you know how long that run takes. So
Yeah.
And I'm sure the laws is dying to ask this, but can you talk a little bit about how you got Daniel involved? Why Daniel is the DP?
Well, before on Precognition, I worked with Michael,
Michael
who
Henry.
I love the.
Who was the gaffer on this picture?
Yeah. So I was looking for something like that, and then I was like, why don't you actually come in
This is
and
the
work on
guy.
this? Because it worked. It worked perfectly.
Absolutely.
Also because Michael was going to be involved in
lighting.
in lighting also. So I was like, maybe that's a good team to have.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
then, Daniel, I know that you're very visual, at least the few times I've been able to see you as a cinematographer, bringing storyboards and everything together to, help bring the film to life. Like even beforehand, did you feel any challenge knowing that there was going to be maybe a lot of effects involved and trying to like plan things out? Because I don't think you broke any floors and created giant galactic
No.
gaps. But I mean, when you're
No.
filming, what was that experience like?
No, actually, yeah. The whole kind of like dream sequence, just having it being a black void was what I thought would be the challenge, and so that's actually what interested me the most was
the
like,
enemy of cinematography, no light.
yeah,
right.
exactly. So that's what I was so interested in and I thought like that'd be a challenge to me because I'd never done anything
Very
like
cool.
that, and like it'd be cool to like just learn how to get the experience from that, and then just I like learned a lot about lighting too when I did that. So and that's even come out with my own work as a photographer or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much why like I just thought it would be very challenging to me to begin with, and so I was like I'm challenging myself, do this as well, something I've never really done before, and like that's only how you get better, right? Is by
Yeah.
challenging yourself and doing something that
Because
you're
I
not
think
used to doing.
we always see like in films there's motivated lighting which comes from the environment, and there's like they pass the street lamp, so of course you see the lights kind of shine through. But when you know that there's going to be something like that glowing orb that's kind of there, that's going to be shining on their face, and it's a whole different thing. You're lighting for something that isn't there, but is probably going to be there later on and is going to manifest in a certain way. So to me, that whole area just seems like its own unique challenge.
Yeah, and this was Jesse's vision, so like he gave me like the ideas for it because he showed me pictures. He's like, this is what I have in mind, and like he trusted me in executing that, and so I'm so thankful for him that he gave me this opportunity to do that. So
Wonderful.
hopefully I executed it pretty well. I thought I did.
That's why I say that it really is a dream team atmosphere. Because I mean, look, as a director, I don't like to be limited by a producer, but as a producer, we, Austin and I, we have to kind of hedge our bets a little bit, right? We have to say, hey, you're gonna have how many special effects, and how are they gonna work, and what do we, But our job is to ultimately support the visionaries, right, as producers, and vice versa, right? So
Well said.
ultimately, I think we had your guys' back, you guys had our back, and how we can execute this all together. And by the way, shout out to the rest of the cast as well. All of the cast, they weren't able to
Ivan,
make it.
Melissa,
Ivan,
Erica.
Melissa, Ivan, and Erica was
Rafa.
here. I think Erica was in the audience.
Oh, okay.
If I'm not mistaken, so that was great. But Rafa also by letting us use the space to
That's
film a couple of sequences. So
Well, I wanted to ask because I've worked with you, I've worked with Melissa, I've worked with Ivan. How was it going? Because you're a theater, you're an actor, and you're a director now too. How was it directing the visuals, making the actors know that there's the floor gonna expand, where to look to? How's that challenge for you?
Challenge, huh? I don't know.
Did you
I
have, like,
mean,
a laser pointer. You're like, no. That's
I think it's not a challenge because people trust you. I
Right.
mean, when you, I don't know,
and this was your first time working with them as well.
Yes.
So that trust has to be.
but like this, I'm gonna go back a little bit. The way, the reason I trusted him was because he immediately wanted to do that. He was like, "Do you have a DP? Do you have a DP?" I'm like, "No," and I saw in his eyes like he wanted to do that. So that
Crucial.
passion is what ultimately I was like, you should do it because you want to do it.
Yeah.
So in the same route, I like to work with actors and people who get passionate about the project, and they pour themselves on it.
Yes.
And to me, that's that
That's
makes
something
our
we-
lives
yeah,
easier.
That's something we've always aligned with. Tower as a whole, but especially you and I, Jesse, is passion over experience to us means a whole lot more. That you're dedicated to this, and if you're gonna learn, great. If you know what you're doing, great. But the point is that you want to do this.
Yeah.
And we see that fire in your eyes, right? And that was across the board with the team here, with the cast. Everybody was excited to be on this project, I think, and what's more, excited to see it.
Yeah, that's true.
So no, it was fantastic. Do you guys have done a number of pictures in different capacities, DPs, ACs. Jesse was even my technical advisor for the latest film I did. What advice do you guys have for storytellers?
Start doing whatever you want with whatever you have. It doesn't matter aim for the stars, yes, but you're not gonna go and ask people for, can I be in your film? Because sometimes that's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
You have to start with a small group or yourself. That's how I started. I started doing films just by myself. I would be in front of my camera and then go back and then record and then.
Oh.
That's tiring, but then you learn that this is not just a one-man work.
Very
There's a whole team behind, and if you don't get that ethical work before you start doing stuff, you're not gonna make it. So I guess that's my advice: is start doing stuff. It doesn't matter what, but if you're barely starting, get your feet on the door.
Well, I'm just an
basically.
actor, and I just watched the film, and it makes me want to go immediately home and start writing after that one, especially.
that's-
But also, coming with that, I just asked you right now about the special effects. How hard was that?
Well, before we jump into that, Daniel, do you have any advice for storytellers as well?
Yeah, I mean, like, just start. If you have an idea, write it out or something, but at the same time, like, don't be afraid to challenge yourself, like, walk into that, don't be afraid to walk into that, what is it, like, the unknown, essentially, and just, like, learn from it, and grow from it, and so, like, trust in yourself and believe in yourself most of all, because, you never know what could come out of it, pretty
Very
much.
cool.
Fear for rejection also.
Yeah.
Fear of rejection.
Don't be afraid,
Fear of rejection.
because it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I mean, people who are in the big leagues, they get rejected all the time, and they're still doing it. So
Jesse, that is going to be a massive question for filmmakers or anybody really, the audience to see this film, is touch a little bit on the special effects.
special effects.
You saw it. You saw it in your head. I remember when you pitched it to us, you knew exactly what you were going to do. And then it was just tweaking once we got the set. But for the most part, you knew exactly, almost like shooting for edit, which drives me crazy. But you knew exactly, no, we need to shoot it this way and for this capacity and for this long, and that's going to give me enough room in the edit bay and stuff.
I think what made it easy was that I had known what I needed, and then, like, for example, all the dream sequences, I knew that the easiest way to do it is in a black space.
Mhm.
That way we can cut, we can add, we can work with the screen, all that, instead of a green screen, because that's harder and that's
right.
sometimes not very good. And because of the theme is, some dream, I guess that makes it easier to work around some
Mhm.
effects and the typical that you see in
Right.
movies. And yeah.
I mean, just to give you an example of one of the things that I thought was terrific, we had a sequence where he falls into the void, right? He jumps, he Air Jordans it, across the board, and then kind of falls into the void. And as he's falling, you see him, kind of all his limbs in the air and kind of doing this. When we shot it, it was great. It was fantastic because we literally got a chair, the bottom half of a chair, an office chair.
That's what I was thinking.
And that's how Ivan laid on, and he was doing this. We shot it from a top view, shot it from kind of the angles we needed, or Jesse needed, and then we saw it on the screen, just erasing the chair and having that be realistic. And like you said, on the dream sequence, you can kind of get away with it's a dream. The laws of physics or
Yeah.
anything don't apply to a certain degree, right? But it felt really good. It felt really good.
And it was kind of like 2D in a way.
Right.
So that's easier just to like kind of animate a cartoon like, boom,
Yeah.
So that,
Well, terrific picture, guys, and I'm not just saying that because we were involved. I mean, if I would have saw this at a festival without being involved, I would have thought it was fantastic. So congratulations on the first premiere of Vivid, and thank you guys for giving advice to the fellow filmmakers tuning in.
Can I give one more question?
yes, go ahead.
You know I gotta bring M. Night Shyamalan. How'd you come up with the twist at the end? Where it was like,
What-
she's also driven.
Yeah, that was.
Oh,
that
like,
wasn't,
giving it away.
Wow.
That wasn't initially in the script that I had 10 years ago. I just had, this sequence of dreams and whatever. And then one night I was like, how can I make it more interesting? I was like, well, what if, well,
She.
I'm not gonna,
Yeah,
no
I
spoilers.
know.
No spoilers.
We're
I
gonna have to-
did.
what if it's the whole thing
In reverse,
upside down
yeah.
or whatever? So
Yeah.
That's a
basically,
good
I was like,
general way to explain it.
Absolutely. No, like I said,
know.
guys, I mean, it's terrific. And
So if you want to see it, go to. We should have a premiere in El Paso. Sometime.
yeah, we will. We'll be having a premiere in El Paso pretty soon. Not just the Vivid, but at least
Yeah,
the last
other-
5 films that we've done
other
throughout the year.
films.
So it's going to be very exciting, and hopefully after that finds a home. So stay tuned. Stay tuned on the Tower Productions website and social
Wonderful
media.
work, guys.
You will see. But thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of the TowerCast Podcast. We talk to amazing filmmakers and make sure to take their advice and just get in there and do it. We're going to stick around, talk to some more filmmakers here in Las Cruces. Stay tuned. Thank you. Welcome back to the TowerCast Podcast, the towering podcast with the towering filmmaker of El Paso in the world. We are back at the Las Cruces International Film Festival after an amazing day 1. This is day 2. Talking to a plethora of amazing filmmakers, 2 of which I'm going to be happy to introduce. As always, I'd like to introduce my fellow co-host, Mr. Michael Lalao,
Hello again.
bringing back our cinematography perspective.
Always fun.
And we're missing Mr. Eric Rostero for the first stint here.
The ghost of Eric is right here,
And
sitting with as always.
I'm your humble co-host, Carlos de la Torre, giving you a writing, directing perspective. We have 2 very amazing filmmakers who just screened their film, their short here at the festival, coming back to New Mexico, as we understand it correctly, right? At least. So we have Miss Lauren Chavez-Myers and Christianna Carmine joining us. This is very exciting because we don't get a ton of perspectives about this particular subject to a certain extent. At least to the extent that your film presents. So we're very happy to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
And then, you guys can just, whenever we have perspective.
War with the mic.
Christianna, as I understand correctly, you directed and produced the film, and you wrote and produced the film. So you both produced and kind of tackled that story. Tell us a little bit about your film, or the audience as well.
Okay. So Enough Room is it's what I call a social impact film. So it focuses on an idea that touches on a subject that goes beyond like your typical narrative, right? So for ours in particular, it focuses on passive racism and communication and invitation. And it's about the day in the life of a Latina woman in Los Angeles and the little bits of passive racism that she encounters throughout her day, and she goes on a very highly anticipated date with a gentleman that she's been talking with on the phone for a long time, and finds out mid-date that he has a very strong opinion on Mexicans, and we kind of go from there.
And our main character, she is Mexican.
She's Mexican-American, yes,
right?
yes.
I mean, we're Mexican-American from the border, so we get it.
Okay,
We're
yes.
not women, however, so that's obviously a perspective that we need to shine some light on that we don't ultimately get as storytellers, right, as male storytellers. So it was fascinating for y'all to be able to bring that. You mentioned in the Q&A that your executive producer went through exactly this, and it was based on her story, right? Can you talk a little bit about that, or how she said, this happened to me, we should make a film about it, or,
So our executive producer, Bobby Becerra, who could not be here, she's not involved in the film world at all. She comes from a very corporate background, to be perfectly honest, but she was born and raised in Echo Park, Los Angeles.
Okay.
And she had this encounter like several years ago and got involved with like a storytelling group, and several people were like, you should make a film out of this. And she liked the idea because she liked she liked the idea of using the film to help spread a message.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's, she put out on a message board that she was looking for writers and directors, and Christianna and I very eagerly applied. And yeah, the rest is history.
And you all knew each other previously, or you just on the message
this
board?
project
You both...
brought you guys together.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's
Nice,
amazing.
nice. It's really
It was
interesting.
love at first meeting.
Absolutely.
I was
I
gonna
see the
say.
chemistry. Absolutely. I mean, you obviously get
I do
along.
adore. It's one of the wonderful things about that has come out of this film is that it's been blossomed into a really awesome friendship. So it's been
Amazing.
great.
Oh no, I was gonna say it's interesting because I think the topic of like racism, there's so many different ways to approach it, right? There's some that are just kind of like hard on, that there's a serious racism moment that's like people getting kicked out of like houses or something like that. And then that sparks up one type of conversation, but I love how you're tackling the passive kind of racism and that passive, how would you say, that passive conversation that can be the bridge for so much more, you know? And I love that it was just a very unique way to tell it that wasn't too serious, but it was comfortable enough for people to think, I could do this. I could get into that later
And
on.
I'll piggyback off that to say that it's the ticking time bomb, or what many people might think is a ticking time bomb, this conversation. But I love how, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I feel like I took it as something like, well, it's something that probably makes sense to just try out and be more open, right? It makes sense in the majority, I hope, to kind of say, well, let's give it a shot. Let's talk about it. And if we can talk about it, I mean, the simple solution, at least with the characters, was, are you okay? and just
Who
asking
hurt you?
that, kind of just asking that question in a non-aggressive, non-defensive way. Just, hey, is everything all right? Because maybe that's coming from a wrong place. It seems like it would be common sense, but it isn't in our society, and it's more relevant now than ever.
Yeah.
So can you guys talk a little bit about that, and maybe what that experience might be like? Or if that correlated in the message at all for you? I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I said in the theater, there's a difference between a judgment and an opinion, right? And so when you're coming from a place of judgment, there really isn't any room to change your mind or to listen. And particularly in this political landscape that we have in our race relations in the United States, it's a hot point. And when you're in a place of trying to develop an opinion or create a new opinion, then there's room to grow, right? And when we first, I don't want to speak for Lauren, when I was first brought on board and Lauren had presented the script, I was like, but in what world would this actually happen? Even knowing that it actually did happen, and that's how Bobby Becerra actually, responded to her date. And I also too wanted to have some sort of reaction, but now, of course, hindsight is so important, and I'm so glad that Bobby and Lauren stuck to their guns, because I was like, I just don't understand. And and I think that it's. Like you said, you're saying it's a bridge, right? You were saying before that these microaggressions, they can do one of two things. They can push people further away, or they can give others an opportunity to step forward and say, hey, listen, maybe we want to talk a little bit about why you have this opinion, and why don't you share, like you said, are you okay? Yeah. Why don't you share your story? Right.
People ultimately want to be heard, right? I think
Sure.
That's the human condition,
and it's not easy.
Sure.
Lauren and I have both had very similar situations that have happened in this movie, and it's not easy. And sometimes you want to be like, really, bro?
Right.
But I'll let you take.
Yeah. And the one thing I want to add is just these topics are emotionally charged. Sure. It's why in the film we had, I call it the Greek chorus of restaurant patrons who were like, this is what you need to do. You need to get pissed. You need to punch him in the face. You need to walk out.
I mean, even in the Q&A, we had a couple people say, I wanted this guy lights knocked out.
Yeah. And listen, I totally get that. And that's why it's, in my opinion, in my mind, and I am someone who is very quick to get my emotions flared up. It's almost easier to get mad.
Sure.
Yeah.
It takes actually a lot more energy to kind of just calm yourself down and say, you know what? I'm just gonna, like I said, I'm gonna sit in this discomfort. I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna ask some questions, and and you know, we wanted to make it where Ben's character has kind of not a legitimate, but an emotionally packed reason as to why he felt the way he did. Like, you want to be able to sympathize with him.
Absolutely.
You want to be able to look at this guy and say, like, oh, you're in pain.
Right,
You're in pain because of this. But, like Christina says, it's an asshole problem. It's not a Mexican problem.
Yeah, and it's so nice that instead of, I think for anybody who's experienced a microaggression like that, the immediate thing is to want to be angry and upset and then just like dart out the room. But instead, the film takes the approach of like, let's expand upon this. Let's use this as a moment to, like, again, the whole bridging where it's not I won the battle. It's like, let me change a mind and then let's
but
continue.
I think it's also the story you want to take home and tell your friends. Can you believe this person? Almost more than right.
Because yes, there is that reaction, or there is also the reaction of, you know what, I'm just not even going to say anything.
Yeah.
Which, during the edit of this film, I had something said to me that was so, like, and I was so shell-shocked. And when I did go and tell people about it, they were like, what did you say? And I was like, I couldn't say anything because I was so stunned. And I'm like, George Floyd just happened, and I just making this movie, and I can't even, and I couldn't find the words to say, hey, maybe your opinion is wrong. And so it was actually that moment was actually a teachable moment for myself with having this film, you know, that I was seeing every single day in the edit. And so there's also those moments where we need to feel empowered to be able to say, you know, do you have a minute to have a conversation or a few minutes to have a conversation? Taking into consideration what Lauren said earlier is that as long as you're taking care of yourself, you don't want to.
I mean, ultimately, that's all you can really control, right?
Right.
Now, kind of pivoting a little bit to the filmmaking aspect of it, right? Ultimately, I noticed some stuff that I wanted to ask about. I'm sure you did on the DP front as well. But just great things like that it wasn't just a political film for the sake of being political. It was using the filmmaking medium to tell a story. And I think, I can hopefully talk about the directing front end, for instance, in the sense of these kind of dream sequency kind of moments where we go from a color change to using the camera to go from one side of her shoulder to the other to see his change. I mean, those are all storyteller traits and choices. Can you talk a little bit about we're filmmakers, right? We get inspired by other work, we get inspired by other shots. Anything like that happen, or was it just like, I think this would be really cool to showcase this moment?
The Greek chorus is my favorite part of the film. I mean, when Lauren presented that, I was like, It was scripted.
Absolutely. This is how. Okay.
Yes, and I was like, I mean, I don't know how this is gonna work, but this is a great idea. But I just was, you know, and it's every time I see, it's just my favorite part. I just love it so much. But when it comes to what you actually see on screen, I have to give so much credit to our cinematographer, Giovanni Lago, and he and I have worked together for several years, and we have like a truly fantastic working relationship. And when we were talking about like our shot list and we were working on it together and what could we do, and Gio and I also did the edit. So, you know, the crossing the 180 was a choice, was something that he suggested. He was like, I think that when we have this happen,
and visually works so well.
Yeah.
It works so well for the film,
Yeah. And it was just, you know, and then of course, like we messed around with the colors to show that it's a significant, like, this is not really happening in real life. But,
what's more is, I mean, I get it all the time. Yeah, when I cross the 180 for a reason, right? I mean, I get that you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
You have to learn the rules to break them, right? Ultimately.
Sure,
so
absolutely.
It is a choice you have to kind of stand your ground on.
Yes.
and I think, it worked visually very well.
Yeah, and it was fun. It was definitely, you know, and of course there's some extra equipment that needed to be brought in. But, it's when you have, because Gio is a tremendous storyteller, and so when you have, you know, another storyteller that is in your corner, it's a wonderful element to include into the production.
Yeah, to speak to that real quick, I didn't notice on set. I think it's because I was running around trying to make sure everyone got paid. But I didn't. I remember the first time I saw the edit, I was like, "Oh my God, he crossed the line," and I freaking love it. Like I was very, very excited about that. And you know, we wanted this to feel day in the life. I actually really love the kitchen scene because it just feels like these people know each other. Sure. The camera movement, like. You know, I wanted that to feel like supernatural, and Christianna and Gio, I think, did a wonderful job with that. And yeah.
As a writer, Lauren, this if you can speak towards, I mean, it's scary to give somebody else your work and say, bring your vision onto this. Has it happened previously? Are you more of a writer than you are a director, or is it something you're used to, or was this like, oh, all right, let's trust Christianna and to bring it to life? This
was actually pretty newer. I've done more like directing, little bit of writing in the past, but this was the first time that was like an entire Here's my baby. Not this one, but this one. And honestly, I was just super excited. Okay. I kind of like, you know, a lot of times I try to write where sometimes I write like a director where you kind of see how you want it to look, and this one was very much just like go forth and play. Which is nice. You mentioned prior to us rolling cameras that this is the 14th film festival, 13th film festival you're bringing this film to?
It's either I think it's the 14th.
14th?
Yeah.
And you're coming back to New Mexico, but you both work out of LA, substantially different in terms of filmmaking as a whole. But both hot spots for filmmaking regardless, right? Significantly cheaper to shoot outside of LA. So can you talk a little bit about that and what that experience might have been like? You both were producers, so ultimately shooting in LA.
I mean, it's an LA story, and I'm actually someone who doesn't specifically like necessarily telling LA stories because I feel like so many stories are LA based when they don't need to be. But this one, because it was Bobby and because it was where she was born and raised, I was like, you know, this speaks to her. And, you know, we were excited. The restaurant we filmed at was in Boyle Heights. So I was actually excited to support like a restaurant in that neighborhood. Yeah. But coming from New Mexico, I would so want to shoot everything here. I think there's an amazing crew and amazing infrastructure. And yes, it's significantly cheaper too, but I love filming here. So if it weren't for that location specifically, it would have been like, let's go to New Mexico. Yeah. So
I'm an LA transplant, but I've been there a very long time, and I love California. I love LA. However,
where are you originally from?
New York.
New York. Okay.
But shooting in LA is like, it's a whole other level of
it's
thick skin. I don't even know how to explain it. Because, you know, there's a lot of like financial and tax reasons and all those other kinds of things, right? Why LA is not exactly the most filmmaker friendly in terms of shooting. Independent film, exactly. Shoot a commercial in LA, you're in good you're in good you're in good nick. But that said, because we live in a city where it's just an everyday thing, and people are no matter what you do for a living, you're familiar with, you know, filmmakers and what's happening. It does feel like a really wonderful community, but it is expensive. I mean, permits cost thousands of dollars, and you know, and that can prove to be a tremendous challenge. So.
And one thing that was one thing that was actually really important to us, and was actually a plus of LA and the giant crew there, is like we wanted our cast and our crew to reflect our message. And so the same message board, it's a women's group that no longer exists for reasons we won't get into. But but I was like, I want a female G&E team, you know, and we had female identifying members. I think it was our gaffer and our swing, our best boy swing. Yeah, and so it was nice. And, you know, when we told people what the message was, they were like, yes, I'm on board. Okay. And that was really cool to see our cast and our crew be pretty, like, awesomely diverse
Sure.
and not just like a bunch of white guys behind the camera.
No, sure.
There were a few and we love them, but
Yeah, but so no, we kind of see that side of things as well. I mean, the majority of our filmmaking crew are Hispanic, Mexican American, Latinos who grew up in the borderlands, so kind of have a very unique perspective in that regard. And it's exciting. And when you get these different types of voices, it is really exciting. That being said, because you both have a unique voice, do you have any advice for storytellers out there that you can give in your experience, impart?
That is a great question. I mean, I say write what you're passionate about.
Sure.
I know that, when I tell people what I'm passionate about, because I also work in TV development in Los Angeles, and people ask me, like, they think I'm going to give some, like, big answer about why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm like, I like social impact work. I like making films that are by marginalized groups, by underrepresented voices. I think that's really important. And they don't have to be, hitting over your head with it. Right. This one's a little different in particular because it was made for educational purposes. Sure. But I can always tell I catch people on their heels when I tell them that. But I've learned over the years, like, that's what I love and that's what I'm good at. And it's not easy. And it doesn't mean you're going to make a lot of money, if any. But that's what lights me up. And I think once you find that, and you don't have to find it right away. That's the other thing. You don't have to find what you love right away. Give yourself permission to fail.
Beautiful.
100 times. No, 1,000 times. Maybe 5,000. This is going to sound so ridiculous, but I feel like don't take no for an answer. Don't be a psycho. But I mean that in the sense of, like, okay, this door has closed. I'm going to see what other doors, because there's a lot of people that want to do what, we storytellers want to do, and just find your groove, find your tribe, find the people that are going to support you emotionally and spiritually and socially and all other stuff, and keep going until either A, you don't love it anymore, or you found something else that or you've made it, or you found something else that you would like to do better. Because there's going to be a lot of no's, but you got to just know that your yes is more important than those other people's no's.
Of both pieces of advice of macro importance. Is there anything we can look forward to as far as your work? Anywhere they can find your work, that type of thing? Or what's the next big thing we can talk about, perhaps?
Well, Christianna just had a commercial air in Times Square, so I'm going to let you talk about that.
Congratulations. That's a big deal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is it a spot we'll be seeing
it was
TV or the internet? Or?
I didn't know until it was on television that it was going to be on television, but it was on TV before Valentine's Day, because it was a Valentine's Day spot for Adore Me, which is a pajama lingerie company, and they did a takeover of, certain spots in Manhattan, including Times Square and Union Square, and I forgot the other place where they, all the trains and things, and then they my producer called me and she was like, "Did you know this commercial on television?"
Oh wow.
Well,
Congratulations.
No, I wasn't aware of that, but it was very exciting.
That's
very exciting, and it was a wonderful experience, and Gio shot it, and so it was. So if you check out my website, you can see the Adore Me spot on there.
What's the website?
ChristiannaCarmineDirector.com.
Awesome. And Lauren?
So you can check out roomofrecproductions.com. That's where Enough Room and all my other projects are there right now. I would say that I have several things in development, but nothing like concrete right now.
I mean, as a writer, you have all these ideas ready, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I will say this: I love soccer. I grew up playing soccer, and my dream one day, whenever after said child comes, maybe a few years, I really want to make a movie about soccer in New Mexico, and not in like a Ted Lasso way, but in a
director,
of course. But yeah, that really actually shines a light on the New Mexico community, because I constantly have to tell people, yes, we're not all meth. We're not the land of, we are the land of Breaking Bad, and we're not at the same time.
Sure, no, we get that all the time from being from El Paso.
Oh, God,
being confused with trafficking or, whatever, and we're trying to get away from that stigma as well. That's not all there is, absolutely.
Exactly. So that's my dream. Someday.
Okay,
working on it, but
Well, beautiful. Thank you all for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Great talking to you.
So nice to meet you guys.
Stay tuned. We're going to be talking to more filmmakers here at the festival, and be on the lookout for these lovely ladies' works, because they're awesome. Alrighty, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the TowerCast Podcast. We're still hanging out here at the Las Cruces International Film Festival.
Yes, we are.
I've introduced my beautiful co-hosts already, and we've got our awesome Tower crew in the background. Make sure we're sounding and looking good. Austin and Ricky, thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
We're talking to in a minute. We already started the conversation. It's been great so far. Alexandra Boylan is joining us right now. You can catch her on a ton of things, which we're going to get into. But most recently, you can catch her on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Should be coming out as of the time of this recording this Friday. Just keep an eye out for that new episode. By the time we release this, she'll probably already be out. So make sure to catch The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. You'll see Alexandra on there. And she also has a film with Julia White coming out in the summer. March 25th. Already.
All right.
The greatest, the greatest inheritance. Make sure to be on the lookout for the greatest inheritance, where you'll see Alexandra. So Alexandra, thank you for joining us on the podcast. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I love New Mexico.
Oh, great. Great.
Already.
Absolutely.
And I love you guys. You're awesome.
You mentioned you've been in Albuquerque as well, right? That's kind of where
I lived there for 3 years. It's where I started my film career as a filmmaker.
Great. Well, that's exactly what we want to get into.
Is that where you lost your Boston accent, or where did this start?
So I moved to LA in 1999 when I was 19.
Wow.
And I was really careful not to have a Boston accent because I wanted to be an actress.
Okay, and they really pick you up on that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like,
because they stereotype you, right?
Yeah, you can't just work. Then you sound like you're from Boston. No, you have to play someone from Southie.
Drew Barrymore has that little.
Yeah. So I was really kind of careful growing up. I was like, I have to talk correctly. I mean, when I moved to LA, there were some words I didn't know that were wrong. Like, I still don't know. Like, well, idea. I thought that you just didn't write the R. And when I got to LA, people were like, what are you saying? I'm like, it's a great idea. Or frustrated versus frustrated. I still don't know which one is right. And I'd be like on a set and people would be like, that's not how you say the word. And I didn't know because.
Well, it brings a lot of personality. You bring a lot of personality too. So we can get that right after that. But tell us a little bit about because you act, you produce, you write, you do a ton of things. So kick us off a little bit and let us know about how your storytelling journey began and kind of where that started. Alexandra.
Mm-hmm. So I moved to LA at 19 to pursue acting, and I was like moved out there, and it was like they're gonna just like knock on my door and be like, we've been looking for you, where have you been? And then I get to LA and oh boy. After 1 year I became homeless. I lived in my car.
Wow.
I lived in my car.
I respect that.
My parents were like, I think it's time to come home. And I was like, no, I'm gonna survive. I lived
As long as it has gas.
It does. And I had a job. I worked at Saddle Ranch on Sunset. I had a great job. I just literally didn't have a place to live, and I didn't know anybody, so nobody would take me in. So
but that's the mentality we all have as artists, right? We all dream of going out to LA and being the struggling artist until we make it, and when we make it right. So, but that's not to say you haven't had a plethora of success thus far.
Have that, So I did 10 years of like pursuing acting in LA, and in 2009 I was like, you know what? If I keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, I'm going to continue to feel insane. And I have I have a really strong work ethic, and I realized that as an actor, you cannot work hard enough for someone else to pick you. And so I was like, no wonder I feel like I'm crazy or I'm a hamster in a cage, because I'll work so hard, but then I just wasn't getting picked. So in 2009, I packed up that Toyota Corolla that I lived in, and I moved out to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I didn't know anybody. I came here all by myself, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try something new. I'm going to get out of the LA box. I couldn't see outside of just doing the same thing over and over. Sure. And I moved out here, and I literally started standing in. I was Megan Fox's stand-in on Passion Play. I was Kat Denning's stand-in on Thor.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we're going way back. Yeah, the first Thor.
Wow.
And so I just kind of got onto set, and I started meeting all these incredible independent filmmakers, and I was like, why don't we just start making stuff? Like, what if we make shorts? What if we make web series? And we did that. And then after we did a bunch of those, we were like, why don't we just make a feature.
Right.
And so we actually came out here to Alamogordo, La Luz,
Oh,
and
okay.
we shot our first feature called Home Sweet Home. 5 of us in the middle of nowhere shooting this movie, brought some actors from LA, literally to show our parents or to just prove that we could make a movie.
Absolutely.
I brought it back to LA. We got a sales agent. It sold at American Film Market to Image Entertainment and was on the shelves of Walmart. And
Was that when you felt like
So good.
okay, this is-
Imagine oh my gosh, what's his name?
no, not that one.
Not that
It
one.
was Image Entertainment, which
Image
is now
Entertainment.
RLJ releasing.
Okay.
Is that when you really got the spark back? That little, flame going again?
Yes, because I figured out that all my hard work, putting it into making your own
Paid
film,
off.
I could finish it. I could
So,
finish something.
Did you write and produce that one as well?
I
or?
produced it and I star in it.
You
So
star
if
in
you
it.
want to check out Home Sweet Home, shot right
Where
here.
can we check it out?
Everywhere. Amazon,
Prime.
iTunes.
Okay.
It's on Tubi, which I'm really excited about
Yeah.
because I love Tubi. Do
Tubi's
you guys know
great.
Tubi?
Tubi is a
I
diamond
think
in
it's
the rough
on
that nobody.
Tubi.
yeah.
It's anywhere you can get video on demand.
Okay.
Check it
Voodoo,
out.
all the stuff. Yeah,
Awesome.
check out. You can even buy the DVD on Amazon.
So that's an interesting process. You and I were talking a little bit about before we rolled the cameras that, well, as you know, we're independent filmmakers and we're right there with you. We write, produce, direct, do everything in El Paso, Texas. That's where we hail from, right? El Paso. And we're always in those processes of, okay, we just finished a feature. We just finished, we've done over 30 shorts. We've done a ton of things. So like, what happens after that? Do we take it to a sales rep? Do we go to AFM? Do we do it A, B, and C? Can you talk a little bit about that experience to the
Give us a
indie
little
filmmaker?
insight
Yeah.
yes, and come to my seminar because I'm going to
Absolutely.
go through all
Here
of
in Las
it
Cruces
on
yeah.
Friday. Yeah, so when I moved back to LA, I didn't know actually what to do with the feature when you had finished it. And I submitted to all the film festivals. I didn't get into anything except for Albuquerque Film Festival and White Sands,
Oh.
which crazy enough, in 2011, I showed Home Sweet Home at this film festival.
Oh, that's great.
So cool. But I still really didn't know what to do with it. And I ended up finding a poster company out of Women in Film in LA. And they saw the movie and said, you need a really awesome poster. This movie will not sell at a film festival. It's a horror movie.
Sure.
Sell it at market. Get a sales agent. I'm like, okay, how do I get a sales agent? So I start
Learning
going on
the
a hunt.
spot.
Exactly. I was like, tell me, teach me. And so they made me this incredible poster. And they put that poster on their website, and a sales agent hired them to make a poster for another movie. And the poster company said, you know that movie isn't wrapped. And they were like, are you kidding? I could sell that movie off the poster right now.
Wow.
And he took it to AFM, and the movie literally sold off of the poster.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah,
Another way,
and so, but why I always tell people, like, do not skimp on your poster. If you're going to put a ton of money into a movie,
Put on your
get the
poster.
best poster because it's actually it's what the distribution company decides how to buy it. It's how your audience picks.
Sure.
What are you
It's the first
doing?
thing you
It's the
see.
first thing you see.
Yeah, when you walk in front of a theater and you see all the posters and you think like, I want to see that one, I want to see that one.
It's true. It's true. And shout out to Jesse because he makes amazing. He's our tower
He's our
poster maker.
poster
He's
guy.
amazing, fantastic poster maker. But absolutely, don't skimp on your posters.
So true. It's how everyone buys it. And then
Yeah.
even back in the video store days, which was back in like 2011, in LA, my local video store had it. So I went in because I was like, I want to see my movie on the
Oh,
shelf.
that's great.
And
Sure.
and the poster is a woman with an axe walking to a house. So it's super, and it's a really intriguing poster,
Sure.
super sexy, but also super horror thriller. And the guy at the video store was like, that's your movie? It's rented all the time. And he was like, and the marketing is so good because girls come in and go, I want to see a movie with a girl with an axe. And I want,
yeah.
and the guys
That's
were like, I want to
great.
see that.
Female
So
empowerment.
female empowerment,
Sure.
but in a horror movie. And that was all our poster company that was really smart. And, so really it all
From there, you
stemmed-
kind of just learned that formula to a certain degree, right? And just learned how to apply it to different pictures. And
Totally. And then I wrote another horror movie, and my sales agent who had repped Home Sweet Home, I brought him my horror movie, and he said, you know what? Don't make me another horror. This was, 2011. Yeah.
I was gonna ask, why did you pick horror? Is that your favorite genre? What
I knew that horror and thrillers sell without a star name.
Sure.
Oh.
So I picked to make, I go, if we make this, there might be a chance
Mm-hmm.
because it is a genre that sells. Audiences are just always,
Yeah, there's a big,
Absolutely.
there's a huge
Oh, yeah.
audience, a big
Absolutely.
market. So if you're going to do an indie film and you don't have money for a star name, I knew that was a genre that sold no matter what.
Sure.
If you could do a
And
good
is
job.
were you a big fan, or is just you knew how to write it, or just a big
I
fan?
love thriller horrors.
Which
I
one-
do.
You gotta tell us which one's your favorite. Which one's the one that kickstarted it off?
Oh my gosh! I mean,
And if it's
Rosemary's
not-
Baby.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Shining.
That's his favorite horror film, Rosemary's
Really?
Baby.
Oh, it's so good. I just
That's
watched
terrific.
it recently. The Shining.
The Shining.
I mean, Get Out of Town, and the new ones like I loved Insidious. I
I
love.
told you that's one of the best ones.
You know what I really love? What's the one with Kate Hudson about the old people and the voodoo?
Oh, no, the Scouts?
The Skeleton
Skeleton
Key.
Oh,
Key,
okay.
yeah.
I
That's
love that
interesting.
movie.
Those-
It's so
what
smart
gets-
and scary, and
Wow.
I'm a huge fan of the
That's
I always
Skeleton.
have to
awesome.
ask that
No,
so you get
absolutely.
an understanding
We
how
get
it
into
goes.
your head a little bit.
Lore.
That's awesome. And as you mentioned to me, earlier, your goal right now. Obviously, I want you to talk a little bit about how you don't fall out of love with acting while still doing the writing and producing. Sometimes you'll start in it, sometimes you won't. But ultimately, it sounds like acting is your first love, and you're not going to let that go. And I think that's a trajectory you're kind
Yeah,
of.
'cause I'm an actor too first, but I'm
Okay.
starting to write because of these guys. But acting's just my passion.
Acting too.
You talk a little bit about that. How you're currently writing, raising the money to fund your own films independently, all of that. And then taking it to market, but ultimately you're still starring in You're still starring in Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, for example. So how's that?
So
How's that?
cool.
How does that balance?
So
affect you?
cool. Well, so after I pursued acting for so long, and it's funny, I think sometimes when you let something go, it comes back. When you're not so maybe desperate or want something like.
Sure.
When I auditioned for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I was in the process of writing a new movie, in post on a movie. I was so busy. When I even did the audition, I was like, I kind of threw it away because I was so busy. It was an accident. I mean, come on. No, I really wanted The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Right.
But my life was slammed. And when I was in my 20s and in the 2000s, when I was out there, I know that I went in there just like, I must get this.
Sure.
And they probably were like, you are just not an interesting person.
I've heard that.
Wow.
And I know, and I hate the stereotype, but I will say, I can't believe I booked The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. But I think it's because I was just maybe they could tell I was a little more of a richer person with a life than someone whose
Sure,
only
absolutely.
life was to come there and book the job.
You know,
That's
you weren't
interesting.
overthinking it because you were thinking of other stuff.
I was like, I barely have time to even audition
It'll
for
be
you
great
right
to
now.
do this, but at the same time, I'm very happy in my trajectory of my career. Yeah. So
And I
that's
was
interesting.
literally busy. Like, I wanted to do it, but it was actually an inconvenience to audition because of how busy I was.
Oh, that's great advice. I mean,
Right.
there has to be, especially as actors, you two can talk about this more than I can, but when you're going into an audition process, and I mean, we're as directors and producers, we're kind of like, we kind of know what to look out for, right? So we know what we want, but at the same time, there has to be a nice balance of projecting confidence, but humbleness, but at the same, you have to have kind of be well-rounded all around, and you can't do that if you're just desperate to get the role, right?
Yeah.
That'll reek in the room almost, right? So you do have to have a good balance of it.
And you want someone who's bringing life to the character.
Absolutely.
So they have to have a life.
Right.
I have to ask, but you started or now, did you like go off script or do something extra, or do you just keep it like,
As an actor?
yeah, when you're doing auditions?
This is
Because I know some
dependent.
people don't like you to go off script, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, well, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel's word perfect.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah,
we'll
because-
kick ourselves if we don't ask you about you being on that set.
I know, it was so
How was that experience? Take us from
pitch me.
like
No,
you said,
yeah,
take-
'cause it's
take
something
us-
so beautiful.
Take us from the audition process and then tell us how that goes.
Yeah, so I auditioned and then I booked it and then I ran around,
This was in LA?
No, I was in New York at the time,
Okay.
and which was great because I was actually writing the movie that I just finished
Okay.
in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was writing. It was winter in New York, and I literally got the audition. Went in front of a white wall in my New York apartment at the time, and I literally just threw it, did it, sent it off to my agent, and then a couple of days later, I got the call that I got it, and I literally, it was a little tiny apartment. I ran around that thing for like 5 hours. I was
why
are
wouldn't you?
kidding?
Yeah.
But then what's so crazy, you guys, is I've been in this business for 22 years, and I got to set. Once I knew I had it, and they sent me the lines. It was and I found out I was with Alex Bornstein. Oh my gosh, I love.
And she's terrific in that show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh wait a minute. Can I pull out? I'm so nervous. Can I
You had
I
that
was
moment.
so nervous. I've never been so nervous. And then as the days approached, I was so nervous. And you have to go in. It was COVID testing. So I got to go to Steiner Studios. Then I went and got wardrobe fitting. And then you get on that, you go to Steiner Studios and you see what a big show this is.
that's
And you
when it
just
hits
start, you just go, okay, I am so and then I got there for my my part, and I went into now because of COVID, you're really separated.
Sure.
It would have been nice to have actually been with the girls who were in
banter.
my scene, so I could have not felt sitting in a room for like 4 hours waiting for them to call your name, and you're like,
the nerves.
the nerves. I was like, I'm so nervous. and
Not
they
to
took
mention,
me.
it's an Emmy award-winning show. I mean, this
Yeah.
is it's, even now this in its current season, so it's amazing.
And I got there early, so they put me in the hair and makeup trailer. And guess who comes in? Alex Bornstein, and sits right next to me to get her hair and makeup done. And I'm like, oh my
Immediate
gosh,
sweat.
there's Alex. Yeah, I'm like, so I think about it. I was like, there's Alex. I'm going to work with her in a few hours, and I don't want to.
Were you able to chat with her while you guys were doing it, or
I
did
did
you feel like
I
I'm gonna,
didn't- I stayed on my side. She
Sure.
was on her side. I mean, she said hi to me, but
Sure.
it wasn't like I didn't want to bother her.
Oh, of
and,
course, of course.
You know,
The
I didn't
professional
wanna-
thing to do,
I wanna be a
ultimately, right? Yeah, absolutely.
You can't geek out right there.
I love you. I can't wait to work with you. No, I
Sure.
was so and then the problem is you have to keep your mask on you because we were shooting in
Absolutely.
COVID, and they were doing my hair, and I was kind of hyperventilating. The sweet man was like, "Do you need to take your mask off to breathe?" And I was like, "I'm not nervous at all. This is just the
You gotta
mask.
keep the
It had
confidence.
nothing to do with the mask. I was so nervous, I was hyperventilating, and they're like, I was like, it's just the mask. I just can't breathe. And then they put you, and it's just like this. And I think that's the thing about being an actor. It's so much hype to get you there. So it's like hair and makeup. Then you go to the wardrobe. Then they come in and double check the wardrobe. Then it's like all this like prep to
All these-
even
all
on
these-
set.
exactly.
before you even walk to the set.
Sure.
And then it's like they're like, okay, we're ready for you, and we're walking down to the set, and it gets bigger and bigger with everything. And then I'm sitting there waiting for them to call my name to come in, and I know it's a word perfect show. And that sometimes as an actor can mess with you because you're like, oh, you can't mess up, and then that just starts messing up your head.
Yes.
Immediately
So
in your head you say, oh,
no improv.
no improv, but Alex Bornstein was the kindest actress. I found out later that all the actors on that show were very aware that the co-stars coming in are nervous wreck. So
That's
she
good.
was so kind to me.
That's
They wanted
great.
to put me in glasses. And she was like, she has beautiful eyes. Why would you put her in glasses?
That's amazing.
Come on.
She saved me. I would be in glasses if it wasn't for, and so you can see my eyes and like
You gotta see
the
the whole
glasses would have
everything.
ruined the whole scene, my face thing.
Can you tell
My family's not gonna recognize
So
me.
that was it.
which
Yeah, it was
character are we looking out for?
Oh yeah, so in the
Alexandra?
opening of season 5, this is season 4, episode 5. Alex Bornstein is interviewing a bunch of girls to be her secretary, and I got interviewed. And yesterday they posted like that 30-second trailer
Like
they
teaser?
do, and I'm in it.
Oh, great.
And I'm like,
On their
maybe,
Instagram or
yes,
on their-
and I'm like, maybe they liked me so much they will end up bringing
A
me
recurring
back again.
role or
I
recurring
think
role?
that
What
my
did they
character's
do?
name is Beatrice, and I really think that Beatrice should come back and work for Alex. So let's put it out there,
Let's
guys.
let's
right
send
now.
it out there.
So-
Let's put it out in the universe.
But yeah, it was awesome, but
great.
it was big. It feels big, and Signer Studios is big, and
Sure.
it was just big.
That's
you know?
beautiful. That's beautiful. And
But I
now
loved it. I
there's
made it through.
now there's precedent.
Said
So
the
now
lines.
I'm sure your agent is like, she just did this. We're sending her out for this, this, and this. And,
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're producing your film, so you're very happy to be doing that. Can you give and just to kind of get a little bit into that territory? Can you give what's advice you'd give to an actor, a writer, a producer, a filmmaker, a storyteller? What's some advice you would give them to kind of?
Well, I think as an actor, I would definitely say create your own work. Find a tribe of people, make stuff right. I star in my first 5 features. Like Home Sweet Home, the cover is me. And I when I went to Walmart and we got Home Sweet Home on the shelves of Walmart, sorry, my Boston accent.
Kick back in there, everyone's doing. Kick back in, kind of.
So I was like, that's me on the cover. And I created that opportunity. And then same with the next 4 movies. And actually Wish for Christmas, my Christmas movie, I gave myself a part, and Joey Lawrence, Lee Allen Baker from Good Luck Charlie, Bill Ingville, they're all in my movie. And I gave myself the part, and I got to work opposite these incredible actors. So that goes on your demo reel, then your agent can pitch that. They can see, oh, she worked with Joey Lawrence. So making your own work and getting to a place where you can bring in celebrities and then put yourself in the scene with celebrity, you know? Exactly. And then that'll help. Yeah.
It's super cool that, you just kind of went for it, because I think a lot of us will just kind of sit back and waiting for opportunity to strike, but you're making opportunity, and that's what kind of gave you your success. I think that's wonderful.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Was that in LA or in Albuquerque when you started kind of like, you know what, I'm going to start writing for me instead of just looking for it?
Exactly. It was all moving to Albuquerque. And then it was
finding the community.
It was
the big
finding
deal.
the community, finding people who wanted to join forces with me.
Mm-hmm.
I think what was great about Albuquerque too, because in LA, clearly it's so hard to survive in LA that no one has time to create their own work. And in Albuquerque, around this time, there was a lot of films here, and people were working behind the scenes as crew members, but had some time, and they had some money to go be like, okay, on our month off, let's all go shoot a movie together.
And the community is still
Which
very
could never
much
happen
happening.
in
I
LA.
mean, New Mexico is booming with production, independent production as well. But even Netflix just set up their own studio
I
here.
know.
So
I've shot
it's
2
massive.
movies in New Mexico. I want to bring my next movie back here. I love New Mexico, and the crew here is phenomenal. It's
Well,
so cool.
it's safe to say that
I will absolutely.
I'm about to say it's safe to say that you also have a crew in Tower Productions that we hope to work with you.
I would love that.
Absolutely.
That'd be so great.
No, but that's amazing advice. I think that the biggest opportunities we've gotten are just because we went for it. Ultimately, we ultimately went for it, and we're continuing to go for it and shoot for the stars, right?
So
Ultimately.
we know that Mrs. Maisel, that's
Yeah.
coming out very soon.
Yeah.
But what's the project after that? What's coming next for you?
Yes. So, The Greatest Inheritance, it stars Jaleel White
March.
and Mina Suvari. That comes out March 25th. It's about an estranged family. Think Knives Out, but instead of who did it, it's where is it? Where's the deed? So it's about an estranged family that all returns home to bury their mother, but really to get their inheritance. And when they get home, they find out that their deceased mom has buried the deed to the estate somewhere on the property. And she left them clues and challenges
That's great.
that they have to do together as a family.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
And Jaleel White plays the executor of the will, the lawyer who's doing everything the mom left behind, and he is hilarious.
Sure.
He's one of my favorite people I've ever worked with. He's
That's
such
awesome.
a great
Well,
guy.
he seems amazing.
He's so funny. And then that comes out March 25th. A great family film, very funny, you'll watch it and you'll probably call your family afterwards and go,
That's
I
awesome.
love you.
That's amazing.
Well, be on the lookout for Alexandra's work, not only on the big screen and on the big streaming platforms, but at the same time, her work everywhere. Independently, her films are also doing great things for women, for independent filmmakers alike.
Yes.
So be on the lookout for that. It's a big deal in our
Just
community.
inspired me to write something.
Can I tell them about my teen girl movie?
Absolutely.
Plug everything you need.
I know, I plug it all. I have so many. I'm like, wait a minute, there's just like so many. I know. I have a teen girl movie that I'm super proud of. It's called Switched, and it stars Denise Richards and John Schneider and Vanessa Merrill.
Whoa.
And it's about 2 girls in high school and about the bully. And the girl she bullies. And the girl she bullies prays that the other girl would know what it's like to walk a day in her shoes, and they wake up switched. And they go on to find love and compassion for
Freaky
each other.
Friday
Freaky Friday
in the
meets Mean
vein.
Girls.
Sure.
I love it.
And that's out. It's on Amazon, iTunes, pretty much anywhere you can rent it. And it's such a good story for young women. It's really empowering. It's very
That's wonderful.
love one
Beautiful,
another. We don't
beautiful.
know what anyone's going through until we walk
No,
a day in each
absolutely.
other's
That's a big
shoes.
deal.
So let's be kind.
That's wonderful.
Great. All right. Well, you heard it here. We got the exclusive on the TowerCast podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Yeah, please listen to this advice. Thank you for being on the show, Alexandra.
Thank
We
you
really
for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
And stay tuned. We're going to be talking to more great people here at the Las Cruces International Film Festival. Thank you so much. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Thank